let's take it off the ice here and head over to the hardwood in the basketball world. We'll start with the WNBA to begin here. WNBA's had a little bit of a crazy week. This week, we both had Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark set to return. Paige did return earlier this week where she put up 35 in her return, but was not good enough to beat the team that they were going up against. And Caitlin Clark is set to return this afternoon against the New York Liberty squad. So I'm wishing that Fever team good luck. But from around the week, just some storylines. Vegas still kind of very much so up and down, middling, not the team that we are used to seeing. We saw that I watched them play yesterday against Dallas, where they fought to the very, very bitter end. That Dallas team, I think, is going to be very, very good here probably in the next couple years if they have a few more assets to their name. But not quite there yet. And Vegas is playing without Aja currently, which is probably why they're fluctuating so much up and down right now.
It's tough missing your best player.
The MVP of the league and probably the greatest WNBA player of all time, potentially at the end of her career. But who knows? The other big story coming from the WNBA was Minnesota Lynx losing to Seattle Storm 94-84. Sending is the first Link loss of the season, so is huge. Umbagwale taking over basically for that whole game and doing what she does, getting buckets, and Minnesota really did not have an answer.
Yeah, we saw in the Unrivaled League, Gumbawale can just absolutely dominate when she's on her game.
So New York Liberty is still the only undefeated team in the league currently. Minnesota is right behind them, and a few other teams sort of leading the way to go. A lot of teams right now sort of up and down depending on what their matchups are not. I wish I could get a little bit more out of the Los Angeles Sparks, especially with their team build, but they're very, very up and down. Them and Vegas both, they trying to figure out what the culture is. Vegas lost sort of their energy and spark in Kelsey Plum, and Kelsey Plum's over there with the Los Angeles Sparks trying to figure out how to spark them up a little bit. So we'll keep an eye on the rest of the WNBA for the most part.
Also of note out of the WNBA news this week was the official retirement of Allie Quigley, who was the former Sky guard. She hadn't played in a couple years, but hadn't officially called it quits until now. But she had, in her 14 years, was a 4-time 3-point shootout champion, and I think has the record for 3-pointers, if not for, definitely for the Sky, maybe league-wide.
The other, just remind me of the other note, Chicago's been suffering, as we've been noting kind of all season long, struggling a little bit, trying to figure out who they were, and maybe they're just a late starter team. They did lose one of their scorers, Courtney Vandersloot, to an ACL earlier this week as well, so they still a little bit, take them a little bit to get off the struggle bus, I think.
It seems, like it's taken a little too long to gain any traction for that team.
A little shocked that they are not better than they were last year. In fact, they're slightly worse, I would say.
It definitely seems like a step back. They I think exceeded expectations last year with the Angel Reese kind of bump of excitement though.
Yeah, so hopefully they can figure things out over on their side, and we'll see how things go. Remember, WNBA is a little bit shorter. I think they are only a 42-game season, and only the top 8 are going to be in that playoff spot. There are 13 teams now, so still a little bit more than half, but you really got to find a way to get in that top 8. So we will keep track of that and see how they go along. Which brings us now to the big leagues of the NBA. The NBA has been a little crazy this week, not even including the championship playoffs, which we've had going on here. Here in the Denver, should be noted, Russ, of course, did not re-sign with us. He says, peace out. I'm opting out of my player option to kind of go get a little bit more money. So
sure.
Good for him. Opens up some cap for Denver Nuggets. If you're a Denver Nuggets fan, I would expect not to see Russ next year, depending on sort of the moves and what we do here. We still do not have a GM. The draft is a little less than 3 weeks away, a little more than 2 weeks away.
I'm sure it doesn't take longer than a week or so to prep for a draft.
It's fine, I guess. We'll figure it out. Odds are is they'll just sort of choose in-house. which I don't.
I feel like they certainly have someone who's steering the ship along currently, at least in general.
The assistant general manager who they have currently doing everything. I just don't know why. If you're gonna let him take control, why don't you just let him?
I am sure there's some back negotiations going on outside of the media scope that we're trying to wrangle up in time, and it might even be like the sort of thing where they want someone who's like with the Pacers or the Thunder, and they have to wait till the season ends.
I have no clue what their thought process is right now. Josh is a little bit of a confusing guy. Either way. But New York Knicks had the hope of potentially scooping and stealing Jason Kidd from Dallas. Jason Kidd said, "I'm good," which,
Now, did I read this headline right? Where who's Doc Rivers with this year?
Milwaukee.
They told the Knicks, "Hey, you can interview Doc if you want," and they said, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like,
that's a funny one to me.
So they were trying to go after the Houston Rockets head coach and Jason Kidd as sort of their top candidates. Both Houston said, "You're not taking our coach."
Right, yeah.
No.
We kind of have a contract with him.
Yeah, and Dallas is like, "You can enter Jason Kidd if you want." And Jason Kidd's like, "I don't really want to go anywhere. I'm kind of cool here." And like, why would you? You just got Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
You're promised Cooper Flag. Kyrie, of course, has his ACL and won't be back till later in the season. But core
he's on the roster.
The core is, he's still kind of on the roster for the most part. The core is young, and why would you leave that to go anywhere else? Like, you're building your own thing versus
having to go pick up someone else's mess, essentially.
Yeah, kind of taking a handoff from someone else's team who's very established at this point. So I don't know. Wish them the best of luck. I guess. But the big news, of course, is for the championship series that we have going on here. We are tied 2-2 currently. They split both games. They were in Indianapolis this week, Indiana. That game, the first game, Indiana closed out, came back. Second game, Oklahoma City came back from being down. So really just back and forth between these two teams. Halliburton and Shai, of course, doing the best they can to lead both their teams. They're the guys who have all the eyes on them, and their role players are playing exceptionally well on both sides. You have dudes kind of doing a lot of everything and some more. So it's
a lot of guys kind of stepping up, filling in. I've heard a lot of TJ McConnell praise, a lot of Ben Mathurin praise.
Yeah, praises from all over the place, depending on which team you're cheering for and which source you're going to look at across the board. There is this question, though, and I think it's a problem. It's going to become a greater problem within the NBA in general, right? There's not super great coverage overall of the NBA finals that we have going on here. I've heard from, I think that's the one thing where Oklahoma City and the Indiana states would agree on, is that this playoff series does not feel as spectacular, and it's mostly because I don't think the NBA is super excited. If you're a basketball, if you're a true basketball fan or a sports fan watching these two teams play,
you're still following, you're still checking in.
Yeah, is great. But for a casual NBA fan, it's just kind of
and the marketing machine just isn't really behind it this year. I would say for the most part, it's like the series is sponsored by YouTube TV, which is a relative, it's not the biggest sponsor you could find, though. It's a pretty niche thing, and it's attempting to kind of compete with broadcast, it feels like, at that point, trying to drive people to the internet, a streaming option. So there's that whole business side of things where you're trying to redirect eyeballs to, and whether or not that's going successfully or not.
Yeah, the biggest one that I saw was that I think fans from both sides were upset that during the actual coverage of the game or pregame, they're not even covering the game at some point. They're covering everything else that's going on throughout the league,
the drama and stuff, and
other sports that are happening. It's we're kind of missing the point and not really giving the praise and glory to these two teams who
tell the stories of the teams who are here. For a machine that spends so much time that is not gameplay time talking and discussing things. The allotment of where that attention goes has definitely not been as focused on the on-court action, it feels like.
So that brings me to my question, right? Looking forward, we're not getting the coverage because no one is super excited about Indiana Indiana nor the Oklahoma City because not really big market places and have places to go. Not spectacular. I'm sorry, Indiana and Oklahoma. I'm sure you guys are beautiful places for in your own individual rights, but not like vacation destinations for people.
Yeah, not the like you said, destination locations.
Yeah, for sure. So looking forward in the NBA, we have LeBron James, who is eminently, I'm going to say, retire. He's closer to retirement than he is to being sort of in the league, the sort of prominent figure he is in the league, right?
Yep.
We know the NBA is going to choose somebody to be sort of their new face. He's going to have to be American because this is America's sport, right?
Yep.
And he's going to have to be on a big market team.
Yep.
Who is that then?
They're so desperately trying to find that person. I think there was a lot of floating for it to be Ant or Jalen Brunson or
so Ant is in Minnesota.
Yep.
I wouldn't consider
not
that
a big market.
Not a big market.
And then the Knicks still haven't really pulled it through to be a...
Yeah, Knicks are a big market, but Brunson, it doesn't have the same star power throughout the... He's beloved in New York because he's their guy, but through the rest of the league, he's not super flashy highlights.
There's a different skill set from being an elite NBA player and then also being a face of a league and like a media personality the way that LeBron is. And he's been very good at both, which is, of his many accomplishments, that I think is one that perhaps maybe gets overlooked, is how from basically a kid as an 18-year-old, he stepped into what was a very demanding job to be the face of the league and stepped into it basically immediately.
The LeBron takeover has taken, I think, a longer because if we imagine LeBron in Cleveland, the first stint he had there, he was a very, very good player. I don't know if I'd consider him quite the face of the league yet.
I think he was the main story of the league, if not the face.
Yeah, he had a lot of eyes on him. I would still say, if we're going to say whose league is this, I would have still probably said this is probably Kobe's league in his time.
Yeah, that's fair.
But once he skipped out and said, I'm going to head out to a place like Miami, in Florida.
Once we had a video of I'm taking my talents to South Beach.
Yeah, to somewhere with a bigger market and draw. That's sort of, I think, is where the LeBron takeover started to happen. He did end up going back to Cleveland, and it's shocking to how much one man can contribute to a whole economy of a city.
Oh, yeah.
But he did so there and decided that he needed to step out of there once again to head out to L.A.
And so I think that there's that whole extra layer of that's very big shoes to fill as far as who will be the next generation face. I mean, and yeah, for whatever reason, there isn't quite anyone who is standing out head and shoulders above the crowd. There's, I think, a lot of kind of whack-a-mole of some guys are looking hot at one moment and then maybe cool back down a little. And
like you said, to be the face means so much more than just basketball play. Anthony Edwards has everything from a media standpoint and whatnot, but where his sort of shortfall is he's still not quite matured yet. He's out there in the playoff, or not in the playoff, in All-Star game doing a 3-point contest left-handed.
Yeah.
Not he doesn't really take anything too serious quite yet, which is sort of what his downfall is.
Which is fine from a personal point of view, but from a business standpoint, the NBA wants a little bit more security in their, or confidence in their choice. Yeah.
Yep. And then we can look elsewhere, Shai's Canadian. He's Canadian, so that already eliminates him.
Already one negative there.
So can't really do that with him, and he's in Oklahoma City, and he's not super friendly, and his game's not
Wemby's going to be a
huge
story, but he's French.
He also is not. He does have some amazing highlights, but nothing too flashy. And also, he's not. Wemby, I think, fits perfectly because my man's out in wherever he's practicing with monks. He just shaved his head the other day.
Oh, boy.
He's with Buddhist monks straight up.
Nice.
And he's going to figure out the inner peace of himself. So good for.
Which is a huge piece to have solved as a professional athlete, because then you can just focus on getting good.
Again, not particularly,
not super media friendly. Yeah.
Yeah. So can't really be him either. I don't know who the only person that sort of leaves is Jason Tatum. He has some sort of flashy highlights. I would say he's not great in the media still quite yet, which There's no one quite like LeBron in the media except for Anthony Edwards, but we already talked about him. Jason Tatum is in the big market in Boston. I don't know how Boston counts as a big market myself, but it is in the sports world. Big market out there in Boston. He has all the highlights and things like that, just missing the media piece of everything. And a lot of people do not like him because of
it's definitely a strange problem to have as a league when you're like, we have some of the most like the talented players in the world. None of these guys are particularly good on camera.
Yeah, it's weird. I expect that from the Canadians because that's how the hockey.
That's the standard fare for hockey, and that's why you don't see Connor McDavid in many commercials.
No, not at all. Even the ones at Makar and
the most media friendly player the league has generated in quite a while is Paul Bissonnette.
And he only got that way, I assume, after he got retired.
Basically, yeah.
Where he's like, I don't really care anymore.
He's in the ideal situation where it was. I mean, he was a very good grinder player. He knew what his role was, but he was also, as a player, you're part of the league, you know the lingo, you're part of the brotherhood of players. So then the fact that, he was willing to get on camera and draw about it and can do it in a more than monotone and doesn't look like he's reading off a prompter. Like, that's the bar to clear for NHL players. Can you make it seem like you're talking naturally and not like you're reading the prompter?
We could look at another player, Tyrese Halliburton, right?
I was going to say Tyrese might get a little bit more looks now, but Indiana is still not really big market. And I think if Indy goes on to win the championship on this one, that'll be a little bit of a boost in his favor, but it still seems unlikely.
I'm slightly worried about how the NBA future looks because you really need to have sort of that face to connect with the sport to make it grow. Like, God only knows how long it took hockey to find someone after Gretzky to sort of take that mantle.
It was Crosby, really.
Yeah, which was how many years?
And that's a good 10-year gap in between the playing time.
Yeah, and
it took Crosby a little while to grow into that role. He was not quite so media savvy on his first couple of years. Certainly not to the national level that he was being asked. And even just looking at like today, like we said, McDavid's not particularly personable. We've covered how the Avs guys are not great interviews. Like, it's fun to hear from him, but it's not a particularly like, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let's give this guy 30 minutes to talk on TV. Connor Bedard, he's held up to being like, he's the next big thing pretty well, but he's got so much to focus on just on adjusting to his actual playing.
His plate is full.
Yeah, he doesn't look ready to step into those shoes anytime particularly soon. Yeah, it's wild to be trying to.
Yeah, now that you're speaking about it, it's almost like the NHL has sort of the opposite problem where you have so many different faces now that you can relate to. Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Leon Draisaitl, the Matt Tkachuk out there in Florida.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to kind of say for NBA is that it seems like they're going to have to, out of necessity, whether or not they want to, flex to a bit more of like regional specific marketing and like, for your intended growing European audience, it's going to be more Luka and Nikola. For your, build your Canadian market with Shai and Jamal and
maybe. I mean, the best thing for them to do is break out of it has to be this American and really try to focus on growing this globally, right? Because if you look even top 10 players, top 15 players in the league, more than half of them are not
international now.
Yeah, not American. Like Luka's probably top 10. Nikola, is top 2 in the world. Shai is top 2 in the world. Wemby's top 5, 10 in the world.
Certainly top 10.
Giannis, top 10.
Yep.
That's already
five guys.
Yeah, 4 or 5 guys.
That's the half of your list right there.
It'd be crazy to do because, like I said, this has been America's sport since, oddly enough, Canadian founded it, born in sort of America, the whole thing. But it's crazy to think that there's so much good basketball talent around the world, and now that the NBA is trying to grow it a little bit more, really outside of the bounds of the United States, it may be time for such a significant change in the NBA model.
I think the other element that we have to consider for especially this particular era of the NBA is the fact that the players don't have to rely on the league giving them that blessing of being the guy for them to like get into media ventures that they want to be in. So like the rise of all the player podcasts out now, like that they can, talk what they want to say on their own platforms now. They don't need to go through league media and stuff and have to censor themselves in whatever way and that type of thing. Like I'm sure there's still, their contract clauses about what they can and can't get up to and whatnot, but
yeah, there's things they still can and cannot say on the like. Never ever talk about officials ever. It's always an immediate fine, of course.
Yeah, of course. But in general, like there are other avenues for players who are interested in those sorts of things where they can do it to their own pace and at their own comfort level with people they want to be doing those projects with, and it's less dependent on like getting a Nike advertisement deal or that sort of thing. So that like, and then I think there's another element of that of them. The ability to not have to make yourself the mainstream friendly like persona, which very few players seem interested in, especially out of college.
Fair enough.